Welcome to the Generation Hustle Podcast, the show that explores the world of business, entrepreneurship, and culture, all centered around the millennial. Episode 17 is a special one, as we have not one, but two guests on today. We sat down with co-founders Dan Beach and Neetu of SoCIAL Lite Vodka, the world's best vodka soda in our opinion. The journey in becoming one of Canada's top vodka soda brands was not easy, but now Dan, Neetu, alongside their third co-founder Kevin, continue to grow, given many of us don't enjoy those overly sugary drinks or beers that bloat us. We explore everything from their motivations to start the business, how a new product goes from an idea to the shelf, and the core techniques they used in order to scale the business. This was a riveting conversation with amazing Canadian entrepreneurs. Be sure to check out your local liquor store for SoCIAL Lite products. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. We also want to give a special shout out to today's sponsor, Podcorn. So let me ask you this. You're a growing brand looking to partner with other companies to help scale your business? Or you're like us, a podcast looking at brands to partner with? Like many business founders, you find it extremely difficult to find these opportunities. Well, that was their case originally for the Generation Hustle podcast before we started using Podcorn. Podcorn is a marketplace connecting podcasters to amazing sponsorship opportunities such as host-read ads, interview segments, topical discussions, and more. With Podcorn, there is no middleman. Podcasters of all sizes can browse and choose opportunities right on the platform, set their own rates, and collaborate with brands directly with no exclusivities. This opens up the opportunity for you as a business or a podcast to scale much faster. So what are you waiting for? Check out podcorn.com to start growing. Thank you so much, guys, for being a part of this. I know I met Dan a couple weeks back discussing a different topic, and then I helped him convince him to come on the podcast as well. So I thought, might as well look at the brand. You guys are up to amazing things. Huge fan of the product as well. Especially the new gin and soda. Am I getting it right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a huge fan of that. So why don't we just get into this? A lot of our listeners obviously know about SoCIAL Lite, but for those who may not obviously been pre-exposed to the brand, can you walk us through the inspiration behind one, the name, and kind of the construct of your team? So maybe Dan, you can walk us through the actual product line, and Neetu, if you can walk us through kind of the inspiration behind the brand and the team itself.
Sure.
Perfect. Neetu, do you want me to start with the background story?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So I guess I know the story started back in 2013. So Neetu, myself, and our third business partner, we were all working professional jobs, kind of working the 9 to 5. We were watching what we're eating. We're trying to work out. And we just got so annoyed that every time we went drinking, and anytime you wanted to grab a can, all of the cans had so much sugar in them. I mean, every can had between 6 and 10 sugar cubes. So if you think about, you're drinking a coffee right now. No one would ever put 6 sugar cubes in their coffee. Like it's such a crazy concept. And then you never go to Tim Hortons or Starbucks and say, like, I want 10 sugar cubes. It's just so far out there. So we just couldn't understand why alcohol companies were doing that with their canned cocktails. And part of the reason goes back to the fact that in the alcohol space, you don't have to tell people what's in a product, which is so crazy. So we were working these jobs, we were getting so frustrated, and we kept asking the question, like, why is there no drink without sugar or sweetener? So we played around with the idea of, like, well, we should start doing this ourselves. And so the first step we did is we started making drinks in our kitchen, and we started making drinks for friends and family. And everyone liked the drink so much that they were like, guys, you've got to quit your day job. Like, right. This is pretty, there's something special here. And so we spent the first year developing the product, and we spent a lot of time just chatting with people in the industry. And we were always amazed at how open people were to chatting with us and giving us kind of their feedback and giving us direction and helping us out. And it's interesting because in 2013, 2014, we pitched all the liquor boards in the country, and all were like, this is amazing, like a pre-mixed drink with no sugar, no sweetener, which was kind of the concept. But like, this is amazing, it tastes so good. And we're like, can we get a listing? And they're like, no, No one's ever going to drink a drink without sugar. Like, what are you guys thinking? And so for us, we're like, no, we think you guys are wrong. Like, if you look at every other industry, better for you or drinks without, or kind of people are looking for better options. And so we actually spent our own money. We produced 6,000 cases. And what's interesting in Canada is that in Alberta, it's an open market. So we actually produced 6,000 cases, sent it to Alberta, and we would spend every evening, every weekend, basically calling liquor stores and selling one case at a time. Like, here's our product, here's our idea, please buy a case. And what was interesting is in week one, I think we sold 7 cases. So we had our weekly, whatever, Tuesday night call. We freaked out. And it was just like, all right, well, let's see what happens. And then obviously with Neetu's marketing capability and our desire to keep pushing, I think the next week was like 40 cases. And then it was like 100 cases. And then suddenly we're like, okay, we're definitely onto something. And so that's how the drink started back in 2014. Again, the whole concept for the drink is it's a vodka soda with no sugar, no sweetener, all natural ingredients. Basically what you would want to serve your friends and family in your kitchen.
Yeah.
And then from there, we've kind of exploded. And what's really cool is not only are we growing, but we've created a whole new category where you have like Molson, Labatt, Sleeman, all creating products to try and recreate what we've done. And this year in Canada, like 1 in every 2 coolers is gonna be unsweetened, or is unsweetened, and it's continuing to accelerate, which has become super, super exciting.
That's awesome. And so to that point, you guys have seen a lot more kind of increase in competition within the space. Obviously, that means you guys are up to something great. So that's always a good sign. And so Neetu, when we kind of talk about that now, how do you kind of consist that in terms of building that team out? I know you guys are expanding your sales team aggressively. So one, congrats on that. Obviously, that's a great sign. But also like SoCIAL Lite. What is SoCIAL Lite? Where the name come from?
Yeah, for sure. I think, it really started like the idea for social really came around is that you want to be social, have a few drinks with friends and family, and maintain that kind of healthy, active, fit lifestyle. And that really is kind of the definition of the name. It's like, we want people to be able to be social and live light. It's the work hard, play hard mentality of, just because you want to kick back and have a few drinks with your buddies, it doesn't mean that you want to give up all the effort you put in going to the gym during the week, or, eating like low carb meals and salads and all that kind of through the week. You want to be able to still enjoy your life, but have, an option where you can be social and maintain that light lifestyle. And that's really where the name came from. And it's a fun play on words, of course, but it really is about that kind of be social, live light mentality.
Yeah. So if I were to go to a picnic today and go out with my friends, literally 90% of our drinks are like these seltzers that are unsweetened. I think, what would you describe, Neetu, as like kind of like the typical target market? Are we like mainly seeing millennials and say Gen Z, 19 plus, of course? And are those kind of your main targets, or are we also seeing like individuals of like older generations buying into these products?
Yeah, I think it's definitely we've been around for 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think in the last year or two, it's become hugely popular with millennials, Gen Z. I think people in that age group are a lot healthier, a lot younger than when I was that age. And so, people are much more aware and conscious of what they're putting into their bodies and looking for that better for you option. So for sure, that's a huge part of it. But we always say it really isn't, it really isn't a demographic thing or a gender thing. It's really a lifestyle thing. Mm-hmm. So if you're a 45-year-old mom who, is taking care of your kids and, working and doing all that stuff, but on the weekend you want to kick back with a drink, but you're also the mom going to yoga class and trying to stay fit and, all that kind of stuff. Just, we have a lot of women who are huge fans of SoCIAL Lite, and same with, dudes who, maybe older or younger, it doesn't really matter, but you don't want to pump yourself full of beer because of all the carbs and all the calories in beer. So people, like you just said, like you and your buddies, like picking it up for the picnic, you're going to pick this up because it's no carbs, no sugar, 80 calories, nothing artificial, doesn't make you feel bloated, and SoCIAL Lite gives people all of those benefits. So it's really, I think anybody who's kind of after that healthy lifestyle and conscious of what they're putting in their body.
Yeah, that was a great marketing pitch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But no, I totally agree with you. Like, I rarely ever drink beer anymore just because of the feeling. Maybe it's because I'm aging the wrong way, but I think that might come with age. But bloating is definitely not a good feeling. So I mean, shifting over to that low calorie, low carb solution is definitely something. And I've always enjoyed your guys' drinks. So awesome product. So let's kind of shift over and segue with Sheriston and talking about kind of actually the process of shelving, creating a new beverage. So obviously directed towards Dan, but Sheriston, take the lead on it.
Yeah, for sure. And to that point, like Dan, you started off mentioning kind of how you guys experimented with the product itself, just making drinks for your family. So that's what we want to understand. Obviously, as consumers, it's so easy to be overwhelmed with the market because there's options everywhere, and we don't understand the process and how difficult it is to create and launch and get a new product to the shelf. So can you talk to us about just can you walk us through that life cycle of creating a new drink and kind of the ups and downs that came with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the entrepreneurial journey, right? I mean, to what I was talking about before, I think one thing we do really well is we listen, and we have a lot of conversations, and we listen to what kind of the right way to do things, and we talk to people in the industry, but then we also talk to consumers, and we understand what consumers are looking for. And so when we started, I mean, we were a little green, and so you go through the process of developing in the kitchen, but then taking it from the kitchen to actually taking it to commercial use. It's a whole new step. So I mean, one of the things we did at the very beginning that I think helped us a lot was, and it was build a business case. And so when we first came up with the concept, we actually sat down and built out a document about what's this company going to be about, like all the aspects from marketing to production to finances.
Right.
And as painful as that process was, what it then gave us was this very structured document that talked about all the elements of the business. So if we were going into a meeting with a banker, we could pull out a section and we could speak knowledgeably about it. If we were talking about marketing or meeting with whatever it may be, someone who's going to help us with marketing or someone with production, at least we had those items laid out. And obviously the document would change as we go. I mean, the other thing with being an entrepreneur, it's the idea of being able to have setbacks and get over them. Like when we first launched, we went through the whole development, took us about a year, and then we co-pack. So in the industry, almost everyone co-packs, which means you use a third party to produce for you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And we were supposed to launch in spring of 2014. And so we're gearing up to it. We're getting all the ingredients ready. And our co-packer called us and was like, yeah, guys, listen, a little bit of a problem. There's kind of this big guy called Loblaws that has a big order going in. And they're going to be running for months. So now you're going to be launching in September.
Wow.
And first I was like, oh my God, that's the worst. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I think what's really nice about our team, there's three of us that started the company. And so whenever someone's having a tough day or things aren't going well, there's always someone who's like, okay, no, forget it. Like, pick yourself up. We're going to sort this out. Like we're going to get through it. And I think for us, that was one of the big things, was just working really well as a team. And when things got difficult or when there was challenges, it was like, well, let's not get upset about it. Like, how do we resolve this? And how do we overcome that? And so, yeah, I mean, it kind of tied down from building that business case to having all those conversations, to figuring out all the logistics, the operations, the marketing. It all tied in together, and it came back to us then launching in 2014 in September. But every year we go back and we build out that business case for the next year, so that as we get better at this and we know who to call, some of the sections get a lot easier. But now as we're expanding the US, we're building out that business case again, so that we can kind of build out what our expectations are and how to get there as well.
For sure. Yeah. I love the collaborative aspect of that and just kind of keeping each other in check. Because obviously everyone has ups and downs, and it's like the team can actually bring that together. So I really like that you put the emphasis on that in terms of managing the team that way. But to that point as well, I want to ask a slightly off-topic question, but on the topic of beverages, is when the product is something that is going, like it's being consumed, it's tough because it's applying to different tastes and things like that. Was that ever something that like you guys had an issue with in terms of managing the taste or managing like the customer appreciation for the product? Like, was that ever an issue during the development stage of it?
I think we made our drinks are intentionally very simple, right? They're vodka sodas, and the
Right.
whole idea behind the vodka soda and what we liked is it's what we were drinking at on the weekends at bars with our buddies, and it's what everyone we knew was drinking. So we knew there was an appetite for just the vodka soda profile, and we were like, but why not have it with a kick of flavor? And we just we did a lot of research, and we did a lot of testing with fans and stuff of like vodka soda with a kick of natural strawberry, or natural lime and ginger, or natural pineapple mango. Like that was kind of like we did a lot of testing of just like figuring out what would be like widely appealing flavors that people would like that in a vodka soda. And so it just kind of was a little bit of trial and error, a little bit of listening to our fans of what they wanted. And I think we've gotten better at it over time. Like as we've gotten bigger, we kind of see what works, what doesn't work, what people like, all that kind of stuff.
For sure. Yeah. So that constant loop of customer feedback just to keep you in check of what they like. So obviously on that point, like the goal is that you aspire for as a beverage company is to land a spot in the LCBO in that likes. So can you talk to us about that process, what that looks like when you're reaching out to the LCBO to say, hey, we have a new product and we're trying to scale this, and we have the backing for it. We have the customers, the consumers who appreciate the item, and like just marketing that to an LCBO. Like, can you walk us through that process and what that looks like, especially for you guys?
Yeah, so the LCBO process it's cyclical. So it's the same process year in, year out. So basically what happens is in the summertime, there's a call for new products, which basically says like, by this deadline, we need all your products in.
Right.
Actually, I should take a step back. So usually as we go through the year, there's a buyer for every category.
Right.
So we now have a very good relationship with the buyer. And so we'll start a conversation with the buyer earlier in the year and saying like, hey, this is where we're going with innovation. Kind of these are our initial thoughts. And the great thing about the buyers at the LCBO and other boards is they know their space and they know what consumers are looking for.
Right.
But we always have a great conversation with them about, here are the trends we're seeing. This is what we're thinking about developing. So that's kind of the step one. Step two is there's this official call by the boards on, hey, submit your products. And so the first step is a written application of here's the new SKUs that we want to submit. Here's why we want to submit them. Here's whatever the value proposition of the drink. And here's a bit of marketing and what we propose on doing next year.
Right.
Then in early September, late August, early September, they reach out and say like, hey, SKU 1, 2, and 3, we want to sample. 4 or 5 are we're not interested in, et cetera, et cetera. So then we send in samples. And then around this time, we actually hear about what products have got accepted for the following year. So that's always a super exciting time of year. And then what we do for the next, so now we're at September. We spend kind of the fall building out our marketing plans, our sales plans, working with our team to make sure that we're ready for a spring launch. And we start developing the artwork. So the artwork takes kind of 6 months to develop.
Right.
And usually we're producing product January, February, March for an April launch. So it's an ongoing process for us. So we always have a huge kind of amount of products that we want to develop. We're always kind of testing new ideas, new concepts, and then kind of we filter it down. And it's funny because we always take ideas from all kinds of people and like, what do you think we should be doing next? And
Right.
Our pineapple mango, for example, was one that some of our fans told us about. Like, you should do pineapple mango. And it's like, oh, that makes sense. And there's a story I sometimes tell that I think is really funny. I was doing a show a couple of years ago, and this woman approached and she's like, oh, I love your products. And I'm like, oh, thank you very much. She's like, you know what flavor you need to do? And we're like, no, what's that? And she's like, onion and garlic. We're like, what? And I was like, as a martini? And she's like, no, as a vodka soda. It's like, I don't know. I don't know if that's one we're going to test out, but yeah. But we do always like if anyone tells us a flavor, we always usually test it out and see what the potential is for it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say like not all feedback is good feedback.
You know what? It's funny with feedback, and Neetu can probably talk about this more, but when we first started, we did every single tasting ourselves, every food and wine show, and the best thing about it is it just gave us an opportunity to understand who our consumers were, and not only do you get to see the people that love the product and like bringing on new fans, but we also got to meet the people who said like, I hate your product. And I think for us, what was important in those moments is like, okay, why do you hate it? And if we could get to understand why people don't like it, that allows us to then move forward with maybe not that product, but with the next product we develop, it may be more in their wheelhouse.
And Neetu, did you want to add anything to that?
In terms of the process to get in the LCBO?
Yeah, or even in terms of that feedback loop that Dan was just mentioning.
Yeah, I always say, you know, I worked in marketing for 10, 12 years before jumping into this entrepreneurial world. And it's funny, you sit in like big ivory tower, corporate towers, and you do all sorts of market research and you pay big companies to do all this research. And honestly, I it's the biggest thing I say is like, if you're going to start a business, put on a t-shirt, stand behind the table and serve your product, you know, like that. There's no better research you're going to get than that. If physically, you know, I always say, if you can't stand behind a table and sell one can of your product, then how are you going to sell millions, right? You got to know what's resonating with consumer, what's making them want to buy it, what's getting them excited, and it's not just the words. It's like, you know, what's causing the physical reaction of smiles and laughter and joy, and like what's making people engage with your brand. You can't learn that in any better way than physically getting out there and talking to people yourself. And I think it was one of the biggest learnings for me becoming an entrepreneur versus working in the corporate world is like, you can sit as long as you want in boardrooms, but it'll never be the same as interacting with like hundreds and hundreds of people, and who can really kind of give you that real-time reaction of what they think about your product and your brand and what they're drinking.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And to your point, you guys are like literally like hustlers coming out of the street, like true entrepreneurs. You know that story of just like getting dirty. You have to kind of get dirty with your business in terms of getting out there, and truly appreciate the hustle. So Neetu, this one's more directed towards you. I remember me and Dan chatted about this a couple weeks ago with regards to the the alcohol beverage industry in general, and the demographics predominantly male dominated. So what does it feel like being a female founder, one, and also being a minority within the alcohol beverage industry?
You know, I always find these questions a little bit uncomfortable, and I don't know why. I got to get comfortable with it. It's the time, I guess, of the world that we're in. But yeah, you know, I always say I never have really navigated my career at any point thinking about the fact that I'm a woman and thinking about the fact that I'm a minority. I just work really hard. And I think what I attribute it to when I think about it is, you know, I was raised in a family where my mom and dad treated me and my brother equal. And my mom and dad made me feel like I had to study as hard as my brother had to study, and I had to do everything my brother had to do. And my parents instilled crazy amounts of confidence in me. I remember like when I was a little kid, my dad was telling me I should be the Prime Minister of Canada, you know, like he was just that kind of dad. He was always but I do feel that I'm very lucky in that way. I'm super lucky that I had that upbringing, that I didn't go into the workforce thinking about the fact that, you know, there are of course inequalities in the workplace towards women, and, you know, not equal opportunity exists at every corner for everybody. And of course that is the reality of the world. I was just blessed with the, you know, almost the, you know, the upbringing to not think about that, and to navigate my career having that confidence. And I think because, you know, we're not all treated equally in the world, I actually think for me, that's the starting point. And that's something I've come to realize as I've, you know, grown in my career, is that, you know, when you're faced with inequality and you're faced with not having the same opportunities as other people, and you don't see necessarily role models, it does have an effect on a lot of people's confidence. And not everybody is as lucky as me to have had the upbringing I had. And I think that's a starting point, is that, you know, and that's why you hear a lot about women supporting women. I think it's really important, you know, as a female leader, that, you know, like I'm a role model, and also seeking out role models for myself of like building that confidence where people, like women, have the confidence to go after what they want in business, what they want in their careers. And I think that's like half the battle. You know, there's a lot of stats out there of women don't ask for the raise as much as, you know, men ask for the raise. And I think supporting women, supporting people who don't necessarily have those equal opportunities is half the battle. You know, I don't feel any different. Have I encountered in the last 5 years as an entrepreneur, as a woman, as a minority, where, you know, Dan knows I'm very open with Dan and Kevin. There are certain people or certain circumstances where, you know, me and Dan could be in the same room and Dan could say the same thing as me, and someone, you know, someone will say, you know, there's a really interesting point, Dan, and then they'll look at me and be like, why are you being so aggressive? And it's like, and I'm like, wait, I just said the same thing that Dan said. You know, and women are just perceived differently. And so you do deal with that stuff. But for me, it's like, I can't focus on how other people react. I can focus on what I bring to the table and what I bring to the world. And as long as I feel like I'm doing the right things, you know, I just have to kind of go with that. And, you know, I'm super lucky that I have Dan and Kevin as business partners. I feel like the three of us being business partners happened super organically. We met through my brother. So it was, you know, a personal connection, and we all just really got along, you know, off the bat. And, you know, there's a lot of respect between the three of us in terms of what we all bring to the table. And I think we always talk about the fact that the three of us are so different, and the fact that we're like, you know, a pretty diverse leadership team happened super organically. It's just kind of who we are, but we do recognize the fact that we're so different makes us so much stronger as a team. And then it's something, you know, you asked me about the team early on. It's something we're like, okay, if that's kind of what's made us strong, you know, and that's that different perspective and that different way of thinking about things has made us strong, we want to make sure we stay true to that as we grow our team, and, you know, have that diverse workforce and the diversity in our team that brings those different voices and different points of view to the table. So we want to continue to do that. And to be honest, in an industry where that isn't perhaps as prevalent as other industries, I think it's something that, you know, we want to make sure we do to set an example. Because it's been pretty organic for us, and now we want to just make sure we continue it, if that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense. And it's like spoken like a true champion there. Like, really, really respect your kind of thought process around that. And, you know, everyone faces adversities, but you're kind of taking them head on and kind of tackling them that way. So I know you mentioned your family being obviously inspirational for you to become, like, you know, entrepreneurial and whatnot. But are there any individuals within the space per se? I know, at least in Canada, one example that I can always think about is Manjeet Minhas. She always comes to mind within the industry as a female leader in the alcohol space. But are there anyone else that has probably inspired you to maybe take the leap of faith within this industry? Other than Dan and Kevin, of course.
Yeah. Well, Dan I met for a coffee, and within 5 minutes of meeting him, he was like, do you want to quit your job and do this with us? And I was like, who are you? What's your last name? I don't know. So Dan was definitely part of the inspiration. He was hustling from day one when I met him. But yeah, you know what, Manjeet Minhas for sure. I don't know her personally, but I definitely watch what she's doing. And I think what they've done with, you know, with their company is amazing. I think they're like top 10 brewers in North America. That's absolutely incredible. So, you know, hats off to her and her family. I think it's really, really inspiring what they've been able to achieve. I don't know if it's industry specific. I mean, for me personally, there's like lots of, you know, female role models, to be honest, that I'm super inspired by. I always like, find I'm like, you know, even like locally, like I was lucky enough to be on this women's empowerment panel as someone who was learning from, you know, there was a group of women, and it was like Michelle Romano and Joanna Griffiths from Nick's, which is a really successful Canadian company. And I find like these local women who are just killing it. I think that all of those women are super inspiring to me.
Sweet. No, I totally agree. And I've actually met Michelle before, and she's awesome. Real cool individual. And obviously, you know, Dragon's Den. So it's always cool to meet individuals like that and be inspired from them. So let's kind of segue into like actual kind of inspiration where maybe you can provide some advice for women who are entering, say, entrepreneurship or want to kind of pursue their passions. What do you kind of think some of the steps they should take to kind of pursue those? Granted, there obviously are some of the challenges that they face in the industry or even outside the industry.
Yeah, I think it obviously depends what you're doing. I think my overall advice, what I always say for entrepreneurship is, I personally think entrepreneurship is way too glorified, and it's made out to be this like, oh my God, these people are so brave and so courageous. It's not that. I don't think that. I don't think I'm brave. I don't think I'm courageous. I don't think, Dan, maybe you are. Sorry, I don't mean to say that to you, but I was like, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that about myself. I really just think at the end of the day, it comes, and I always say I hate the term leap of faith, right? I actually hate that term because it makes it sound like you're going to jump off a cliff and kill yourself. It's like, who would want to do that? Who wants to like jump off a cliff? It makes it sound so scary. I really think entrepreneurship is not unlike anything else in your life, where it's about putting one foot in front of the other, doing one bit of work at a time. And I think it's just about the hard work. If you wake up in the morning and say, okay, I have this goal, I want to do this thing. What's something I can do today to move that agenda forward? What's one piece of work I can do to move that forward? And eventually, if you take enough steps where you've moved it up, you've inched towards your goal a little bit every day, eventually when it comes time to really, start that business, it's not going to feel like a leap of faith. It's just the next step forward, right?
Yeah.
I just think you have to work on it, get, like Dan said, it's a lot about networking, put your idea out there, talk to people, get feedback, put that business plan together, figure out how you're going to get capital, figure out how you're going to, make the product if it's a product, or get your service. But it's all just the work you got to do. There's no substitute for the hard work. And I think if you just keep doing that, I really believe, anyone can do it if you've got the right support system around you and you're willing to do the hard work.
And I think with entrepreneurs, they often get a bad rep for just being like gunslingers who are just like, yeah, let's just go do this. And like, we need this, we need that. But the reality is, at least with us, with two engineers and Neetu's marketing background, we've always been very strategic about it, and everything is calculated. So yeah, you have to do all the hard work and all the hustle, but you have to have a good idea to begin with, and you have to have good concepts before you can even move forward, or else your time is almost wasted.
Yeah.
And I think as we talk to young entrepreneurs, a lot of times when they tell us their idea, oftentimes they're really good. It's like, okay, you have a really good idea, just organize it and go. And then sometimes we have the hard conversation with young entrepreneurs to say, like, this idea, you may like this idea, but when you look at it at a macro scale, it would be very hard to scale, and it's hard to make a business out of this idea. So maybe you should think about something else. And I think you have to have that ability to have those tough conversations with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But don't trust one person's opinion, because there's so many naysayers out there. There's so many naysayers. So you got to get a lot of feedback, because somebody might tell you your idea is bad, and then maybe 10 other people are going to tell you your idea is good, right? So it's definitely important to you got to talk about it. You can't be afraid to talk about your idea, because you really do got to bounce it off people and get feedback for sure.
Yeah. And so did you guys experience that too? Like some adversity initially onset saying, no, guys, this is a stupid idea.
Oh, absolutely. We got rejected by every liquor board. We talked to people in the industry who were like, no one's going to drink a drink without sugar. Like and then not only that, like we, just like every business, you have ups and downs. And we had days where some of the samples we submitted lost all their carbonation. And so after the fact, we get rejected and we go and try the extra samples and they're flat. And it's like, what? Like, obviously we didn't get a fair shot at it. But I think that's part of the entrepreneur journey. And there aren't many entrepreneurs who tell you the story of like, yeah, I started this business and suddenly I was selling millions and millions of widgets and everything was perfect and I never had any issues. And like, and going back to our team, the nice thing about us is that we'll argue sometimes about direction we want to go, but we always go in to these arguments knowing that we're going to make the best decision for the team.
For sure.
And any argument we have is not personal. It's never an attack of kind of, I hate you or you're doing something wrong. The argument is always like, this is my point. Here's the data to back it up. And here's why we should do this. And we always, I mean, with three of us, the nice thing is like, two beats one. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like once two people agree on something, and it's just like, all right, problem, like decision made, let's move on and let's stop
Yeah.
wasting time.
It's that old
Sure.
saying, it's business, not personal. So I think that applies to a lot of cases. And even in our podcast, we always talk about strategic decisions. And obviously, me and Sherston always the back and forth. It's like there's always business, not personal. So
Mm-hmm.
have that kind of open context and transparency of what you actually think.
Mm-hmm. And when you
100%.
start
Yeah.
a business together, you're gonna get very personal with the people you start a business with, and like Neetu and Kevin and I have had very difficult conversations, and especially as you go to get financing, you kind of have to know about the other person's financial
Yeah, for
situation
sure.
Right.
and their spouse or their partner, and those can be uncomfortable conversations sometimes, but those are conversations you have to have, and you have to have it out in the open um, about what you want out of it.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I think you guys have a really holistic approach of how you approach the team and how you kind of approach each other within the team. So I think that's amazing for internal debate as well and for growth as a company. But pivoting into kind of the external side of that, we want to kind of start talking about the competition in the industry. So Dan, I know like the hard seltzer industry has been growing pretty substantially over the last few years. So can you talk to us a little bit about how you handle that competition in terms of how you approach it, some of the factors that you consider when you're evaluating different competitors in that space?
Absolutely. I mean, when we started, we were the only ones in the space, and
Right.
we kind of had a 2-year period where there was no one. But what's great is that the fact that we have competition is an affirmation that we're in a space that's growing and that is exciting. And so one thing we do is we welcome the competition, and we know that as we get competitors in there, it just means that this space has gained validity, and it's a space that people want to be in. And especially with our space, when we first started, there was a lot of education that we needed to do. So when we did a trade show or we pitched our product, a lot of times we had to start with the idea of like, hey, what exists right now is not good. There's so much sugar. We've developed this drink without sugar. And then usually people will be like, well, I don't like sugar. And there's like, well, there's no sugar in here. And then people will be like, well, I don't drink coolers. It's like, well, it's not a cooler. Like, just try it. And what's been really nice is as we have these competitors come in, they help us tell that story, and they help bring consumers from either the coolers or the beer side, and they come in. And as we go through this journey, I mean, we keep tabs on what our competitors are doing, but more so from an interest side, like, oh, competitor A is looking at this type of drinks. Like, well, that's interesting. But the reality for us is we only focus on ourselves. Like, right. we are our own competition, and anything that we develop, we want it to be better than what we produced before. And what's really nice about this category that we've kind of spearheaded is vodka soda, hard seltzer, whatever you want to call it, is the fastest growing segment in alcohol these days.
Yeah.
And it's just getting bigger and bigger. And the reality is, people like yourself, are moving away from beer, and beer is the category that's taking the biggest hit since the vodka soda category has launched. And what we're finding is the vodka soda category just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And there's a stat that I heard that like a third of the population don't like beer, and so immediately you have this 1/3 that is perfect for the vodka soda category, but then you also have the other 2/3 of people that are trying to make better decisions, and that's what we allow people to do with our products. Is we always start with our customers and think about, like, what do customers want? Like, if someone's sitting in my kitchen, what would they want to drink? And so we design drinks around that, and then that's really where our concern is with kind of meeting the needs of those consumers instead of worrying about what our competitors are doing.
Yeah, for sure. I like that a lot. And to your point on that stat, we actually looked up an article recently. It came out this year. It was a CBS article that mentioned wine and beer consumption in the States has had its first decrease in almost 25 years. So that's a testament to kind of where that industry is moving and kind of like the consumer taste and where that's shifting. And I know, Neetu, you mentioned earlier that like you don't specifically have a demographic, so to speak, that you target. It's we're just providing a market to fill a gap in that industry. So with that being said, and like with all these stats that we understand with consumer trends changing, what do you foresee in the future of hard seltzers or for this drink itself?
Yeah, I mean, we have like our target market is really psychographic. It's just about a lifestyle, right? And I think the reality across all food and beverage, like Dan was saying, like people are looking for more natural, simpler ingredient lists, less sugar, less carbs. In everything we eat and drink, we're just as a society trying to be healthier. There's a lot of predictions out there that hard seltzer will can like triple by 2023, will continue to be the fastest growing segment in beverage alcohol for the next 5 years. So I really think that this trend, there was a lot of questions 3 or 4 years ago, is this a fad or is this a trend? And I think a lot of the pundits or whatever out there have concluded, okay, this is a trend, this is where people are going. It's a better for you option when it comes to consuming alcohol. So we really just see continued growth in better for you drinking. And so our portfolio will continue to expand. Our vision is to be the leading better for you brand. And so we're going to continue to bring out products that have, no sugar, no carbs, lower calories, but great tasting, and capitalize on really what consumers are looking for in this growth in this like enormous segment. And that's growth within Canada and growth, beyond our borders. But we really want to continue to be true to where we started, which is in the better for you drinking space, and just continue to kind of innovate and grow within that, as we don't see, like Dan said, more competitors coming in means the pie is getting bigger, and we just want to keep growing as, that pie grows essentially.
For sure. And we love that pie keeps growing because that gives us more flavors to try in the future.
Yeah.
So we're not complaining.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Neetu, kind of taking on to that point, we know like in this industry specifically, marketing plays a huge role in terms of the growth of a product. I always kind of go back to those, maybe not the same thing, but how Diddy sponsored, what was it? Was it Ciroc? I think it was Ciroc. Yeah, kind of that context and how it's just like marketing. It's really what kind of sold it. Or I think Jay-Z has like Ace of Spades, one of those drinks. I'm not sure, but it's kind of that context. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm not really a consumer of that expensive champagne, but I know Jay-Z sponsors it. But so kind of walk us through like the different dynamics at play when you're kind of designing a launch strategy for a new drink. I know Instagram's a huge probably channel for you guys because there's a lot of eyes, and I think you're up to like 35K followers, which is quite significant. So can you kind of just like describe what your kind of thought process is when you're launching a new drink?
Well, we had the same conversation. I mean, I told Dan about Diddy and Jay-Z. I tried to get him to be a rapper and release a single, and it didn't go anywhere.
Oh man!
I'm just kidding.
Dan, we need that fire mixtape soon.
Yeah, we're trying. We're trying to bring Drake in as well.
Oh, yeah. Sweet.
I'm joking.
No, of course, celebrity. Yeah, that's the benefit of celebrity is always a shortcut to mass awareness, right? But sure. It's of course a very, very expensive proposition, and not in reach for everybody. And so, honestly, I think people don't like realize how practical real marketing is. It's not always as sexy as Jay-Z and Diddy, just because that's not in reach. But fundamentally, if you're launching a product, I always say our marketing approach. After you figure out who your brand is and what you stand for and all that kind of stuff, you obviously have to figure out your communication and your messaging. But in terms of like, you're asking me about Instagram and where we market, fundamentally, it all starts in the store. So I always say we have an approach to marketing that's starting with in store and then moving out, because at the end, 90% of decisions are made at the moment of truth, right? You get to the shelf in the liquor store, you're looking at everything on the shelf, you're going to make a call at that point. So, whether it's getting into the right place in the store, getting the right signage in the store, working with the LCBO to be promoted in the store, that it really is important you stand out in the in-store environment. And that's not that sexy, but that's the truth. And then the second piece of it, when you're a startup, is that if you've got a really great product and you really believe in your product, the number two thing you got to do is you got to be standard in store, but you got to get people to taste it. Mm-hmm. So, we really built this business, and you said, and you talked about we're expanding our team, and the number one quality we're looking for is hustlers. And honestly, we spent the first couple of years, 100 days of summer, Dan, Kevin, and I worked like, honestly, 100 days of summer, it felt like we were working every night and every weekend, just getting out there to gyms, to festivals, to beer festivals, to, races, whatever it was, just in-store tastings, just getting people to try the product and be like, we'd get that reaction every time of people couldn't believe how good it tasted, even though there was no sugar in it. And fundamentally, you have to drive enough trial in your product to create that word of mouth of people talking about, oh, I found this new drink, and you got to try it, right? And that's what you want to do. And you want to get that in a few different communities. So we go after, the gluten-free community, the keto community, just generally fitness and the gym community, like the gym rat community. And we try to find all of these communities where this product would be super, super relevant to their lifestyle and create momentum and buzz in these communities just by getting them to try it. So I think fundamentally there's no shortcut for that. You really do have to get the product in people's hands and find effective and efficient ways to do that. And then once you've done that, you're in a good spot in the store, you've gotten thousands of people to try your product. Of course, you still have to do the awareness play and that sexy part of marketing of like, how are you going to get people talking about your brand? And that's where social media and Instagram and all the advertising comes into play. And that's so, but I do think it's important to get the fundamentals right. And then you kind of work up to all of that other stuff. And Instagram's huge, especially nowadays, right? Like as with alcohol, like you said, with Diddy, it's not even about big celebrities anymore. It's about what are your friends drinking? What are your friends posting about? What's popular on campus nowadays? What's popular at the clubs nowadays? Like that's what people want to know. And so, and how do we discover that nowadays? We find it on TikTok, we find it on Instagram, right? And so that for sure becomes part of like creating that buzz around like, what are people drinking nowadays? And we want to be part of that conversation for sure.
No, that's ultimately like a sweet kind of like, way to describe it. Like, I'm going to be honest, when I walk through like say an LCBO, I see some of your black cans and my eyes kind of go towards that. So good play on obviously the design and marketing there. Because all the other ones look like, your regular aluminum cans with a little branding on it. So it's not as appealing. So whenever I'm looking at these things and it's just like, okay, oh, that caught my eye. So I just, at least even taking a look, you might be interested in buying the product. So I think you're totally on point there when you're kind of describing that it starts at the point of sale.
For sure.
Right. And so kind of segueing into like actual trends within the product. What kind of like recent trends have you kind of noticed in like, say, maybe flavors or say marketing and stuff like that you've kind of started to incorporate with SoCIAL Lite's growth? I know one of them obviously might be the introduction of a gin and soda, but what kind of other things are happening and you guys are starting to incorporate and expanding into that?
Well, I think one of the things actually that you touched on earlier on is that this has kind of become super popular among the Gen Z millennial population. And that's, to be honest, we've been in business for 5-6 years. That's really come to light in the last like 2 years. So one of the things we just started now, across Canada, we have a campus ambassador program. So we're like doing marketing across campuses, on campus, in a COVID-friendly, socially distant, responsible way. But we have kind of campus programs across the country. And I think that's part of like, the trend of this becoming, a really popular drink among that campus demographic, and us wanting to make sure we're present in those areas is something we've started in the last couple of years. When it comes to products, like we're constantly monitoring flavor trends and what's popular. I'll give you one fun anecdote just because it's kind of random. Like we launched our pineapple mango flavor 3 years ago, I want to say. But there's been this like crazy resurgence and interest in tropical flavors. And so even though it's not our newest flavors, like 3 years later, kind of randomly, we saw this huge resurgence and growth on that flavor in Western Canada and in Ontario, it's, one of my favorite flavors that we have. So it's been kind of fun to see, but flavors kind of go through ebbs and flows of like what's popular. So that's, and we just try to kind of keep a pulse on that as we come out with new flavors too, for sure.
Right. Dan, is there anything you'd like to add, maybe from a business context? One of the things actually I wanted to ask you guys is like, with anything when it comes to manufacturing, are you guys diversifying your co-packers or just because, are we, I've talked to individuals who've made CPG products or other food products, and they have multiple manufacturers just to avoid the risk of, a production failure on the onset. Is it somewhat similar in your case?
Yeah, I mean, when we first started in, I think, the second year, we just didn't have the ability to react to the demand of the consumers. And so I think it was July of 2016 or 2017 where we went out of stock for a month. And for us, it was like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. But I think it taught us a good lesson in being prepared ahead of time. And yeah, for every aspect of our business we do, we try and have a backup or at least two backups, so that if there's an issue, then we can deal with it, and that we have another avenue that we can go down. I mean, one of the things that has been challenging for this industry, and it has been just the lack of can availability. And aluminum can, there's been an aluminum can shortage. So what that means is you could get to the height of the summer and like, sorry, no more cans left. And that's a difficult conversation to then have with your customers. So we always work kind of 6 months, a year ahead of time to make sure that we've procured all the ingredients, we've procured all the cans, the cardboard, because you don't want to get to that point where kind of Neetu's marketing machine has started and it's chugging along, and people liking our products, and it's moving, and then you just can't get it produced. So from a business perspective, those are all the aspects that as a team we take really seriously, and we work together to make sure that we're ready for the season, and kind of, we're more than ready for the season.
Right.
For sure. So I think I cut you off.
No, you're good. You're good.
So I kind of want to understand a little bit more outside of the company itself, your stories. And so Dan and Neetu, I know Neetu, you mentioned earlier that your first conversation, Dan was asking you to quit your job. So let's go back to that. And I want to ask both of you guys on your personal stories in terms of why you started that entrepreneurial journey. Like, what brought you towards that instead of the traditional kind of corporate environment? Was that something that was always on your mind, or was it something that was fresh? Like, what was it for each of you guys?
Neetu, you want to go first?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, I always knew that I wanted to start my own company, or I wanted to be something that I could build, and I always loved the idea of that. And when I did my MBA, basically as I went through the process, everyone you talk to and every professor was like, listen, there's two career choices: management consulting or investment banking. Like, that's all that exists. And I made I didn't make a mistake. I did go down the management consulting path, and I did that for a couple of years. And I mean, it was great. I learned a lot of things. I helped build businesses, and I helped understand the strategic side. But I was always miserable with kind of the overall of it. And both of those careers are made out to be these, like, it's the best thing you could ever get into. But the reality is when you get into them, it's a grind, and you're always at the beck and call of someone else. You're always on the road. If a senior partner tells you you're going to wherever, Nebraska for the next 6 months, then that's what you're doing. You're there Monday to Friday. If you come home, it's to wash your clothes, and then you're back on a plane on Monday morning, and you're staying at, it may be a nice hotel, but pretty much every hotel room is the same after a while.
Right.
And so when we started talking about SoCIAL Lite, for me, it just became super exciting. And when we first started, I mean, we all took huge pay cuts. But for me, I've never been happier. And I could just see that every decision that we made had an impact. And we know we almost control our own destiny. And so that for me has been the most exciting thing. And like, finding the right team, finding the right business partners has been an amazing experience. And for me, it has been the right decision. And I know that it's not the right decision for everyone. You have to have a certain personality. You have to be okay with kind of taking risks, and you have to be okay with making decisions that could impact your future life. But Neetu talked about it before. Like, all three of us are really lucky that we have a good support network around us. Like, we work really well as a team, but each of us have amazing partners that support our journey, believe in what we're doing. We have friends and family that encourage us. I think one of the points where I realized like we were onto something is when I walked into a friend's house and opened up their fridge and saw SoCIAL Lite in it.
Oh,
It's
wow. Yeah.
yeah, like, thank you. We really appreciate that. And so for us, I mean, for me personally, I just have it's something that I've always wanted to do. And as we got into it, it's like, yeah, no, I love this, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. So that's been my experience.
I love that. Neetu, do you want to give your story here?
Yeah, for sure. Mine's maybe less clear, less straightforward. I don't think I could say I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I kind of graduated, from school and then went into the corporate world in terms of marketing. And I spent, 10, 12 years doing that. I spent almost 10 years at PepsiCo. I was doing mostly brand marketing and some sales strategy and stuff like that. And honestly, I loved my job. I loved my career. I loved working at PepsiCo. I loved the people. They really supported me through my career. But I'd been there for almost 10 years, and I had actually put like a big thing in my calendar at work on my 10-year anniversary saying, you're not allowed to work here anymore on this date. I was like, I knew I loved it, but I knew I didn't want to be a lifer. I didn't want to work there my whole life, and the world is a big place and there's so much to experience. And I didn't want to get caught doing one thing my whole life. And so I was actually at around the 9-year and some odd months mark when I just was like, okay, I got to figure out what I want to do next. And I just started saying yes to a whole bunch of opportunities. So when I met Dan, I was volunteering for a few different charities. I was doing a night class at Ryerson where I was studying journalism. I was doing a print journalism class at Ryerson. I had met a few different people for coffee, and I was just trying to figure out, I had reached a point in my career at PepsiCo, and it's kind of like this in corporate world in Canada. It's like you reach a certain point on the corporate ladder. There's not a lot of jobs above that, right? It's like, what are you going to do? And like, they had offered me to move to the US, but I didn't want to move to the US. And so it was kind of like, okay, well, I got to figure this out for myself. And I was doing all those different things when my brother said, hey, Rob's friend, Dan, like they have this idea for this drink thing. And they find out all you do is like market and sell drinks at Pepsi. Like, will you meet meet Dan for a coffee? And honestly, that's kind of like, it's a little bit serendipitous how that happened. And Dan told me the idea. We met for coffee. And I'll never forget it. We met at a Second Cup, like in the condo that I was living in downtown. And he was just this very excited guy who was very excited about his idea and his and Kev's idea. And they kind of gave me the gist of that. And he's like, okay, we want to put a vodka soda in a can. And I remember thinking, it's pretty basic idea. Like, I was like, it's just like a vodka soda in a can. And I was like, there's no way, I remember leaving that coffee thinking, there's no way nobody's done that. Like, all I drink is vodka sodas. All me and my girlfriends drink is vodka sodas. There's no way that no one's actually thought to put that in a convenient canned option. And then I went home from that coffee, and I honestly, like for 3 hours was on the internet on Google trying to find a product like the one that Dan was describing. And it just like, I was like, oh my God, actually nothing like this exists. And I was like, I would totally buy this. My girlfriends would buy this. I go camping. I would take this camping. I started having these like memories of like camping in the summer and being like, yeah, I never drink because I don't drink beer. And you're not gonna bring a wine bottle camping. I was like, this was exactly what I would take camping. And so I just immediately saw how good of an idea it was. And I really did. I do have a passion for building things, and the idea of building something, not only a product and a business, but a team, from the ground up really, really, really excited me. And then, and then Dan, Kevin, and I just all met, and then we started having, every Tuesday night meetings, and then Tuesday night meetings.
Me too. Before that, you came over to my house and we opened up one of the 6 sample cans we had for you.
Oh.
Yeah. That's right. They had a prototype that they had, and we tasted that, and and then before you knew it, like Tuesday night meetings turned into like a business, and it was it was kind of crazy. So for me, it was a little bit. I was in that mode, I guess, of saying yes to different opportunities and exploring what I wanted to do next in my career, and I just happened to meet Dan at that point in my life, and so it's kind of history from there. And then I entered this crazy world that I didn't know I was going to get into, but
Yeah, that's amazing. I love how organic all of this was. Like, even for you, just to be maybe a few months away from that 10-year deadline, and then Dan just shows up. Like, it seems almost like a textbook or like a storybook tale, but like it worked out, right? So I love that story. I love that a lot.
Yeah, and then I guess we should also mention our third business partner is Kevin. And I ended up going to engineering school with him a long time ago. And when we came up with the idea, I mean, Kev is the complete opposite of Neetu and I. He's like a detail oriented guy. So if it wasn't for him, like our business would have been dead a long time ago, just because he gets all the details right on our packaging. He knows all about production. He knows all about kind of how to run, like basically the back end, and he keeps us organized, keeps us on schedule. And so that's the great thing, is that as a team we work out so well because we all bring different skills to the table. And there's kind of our main focus that each of us has, but then we work really well covering for each other and working with each other on different aspects of the business. So Kev's been a big part of the business as well, which is pretty amazing.
For sure. Yeah. So the whole team just kind of complements themselves, and you kind of create a cohesive unit, which is what we love to see. So so that's great. So that kind of wraps up like the professional side of the podcast itself. And we like to end off on a lighter note, and just kind of getting your feedback and just to kind of understand you guys, your personality itself. And so we have a lightning round here where we're going to kind of just shoot a bunch of questions. It'll be 4 or 5 questions, and you guys have about 10 seconds to answer with the first thing that comes to mind. So I don't know how you prefer to do this. We can either go Dan first, Neetu, or Neetu first, Dan. What do you guys prefer?
Either way.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to ask the question, and then you both just give me your answers.
Okay.
Sure.
Awesome. First question to both of you guys. What is your favorite book of all time?
All right, I'll go. Mine is a book called Born to Run. It's about it's a lot about a lot of things, but it's essentially the concept of humans are made to run really long distances without shoes on. And so I took up ultra running quite a few years ago.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and this book ties in. It also ties in the idea of, as shoes evolved, people got injured more often. So it's best to have less padding. And then it talks about ultra marathons, and then it talks about this tribe in Mexico called the Tarahumara that run long distances for fun. And so it ties it all in together, and it had a huge impact and influence on my life, which has been pretty amazing.
That's so cool.
Thank you.
Me too.
Well, mine's a little less interesting, but I was just going to say, well, the most recent book, Educated by Tara Westover, is a fascinating true story book that's kind of on a fiction or on a story level. I love the book Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. That's influenced me from a marketing perspective a lot.
I think a lot of individuals. Yeah, exactly. Love that guy.
Yeah, he drops a lot of wisdom. I love that. So, and maybe that might be your answer to the next question. But if you could have dinner with one person today, who would it be? Like, perfect guest for you guys. It doesn't have to be work related. It can be a personal preference.
Yeah.
The first thing that came to my head was Barack Obama.
Okay.
Oh, that was mine too.
All right, we'll take Obama for both.
Well, given the situation currently, it becomes I mean, obviously a person of great importance in U.S. history.
Yeah.
Amazing narrator. Just a completely interesting person.
For sure. Definitely. So here's a question on the product line itself from SoCIAL Lite. What is your personal favorite flavor from your product line?
Triple berry vodka soda.
Okay.
Okay.
I feel like all the flavors are like my kids. It really depends on the day.
There's always a favorite kid. There's always a favorite kid.
Again, it depends on the day. I mean, I love all the new stuff. I go back to the lime ginger as one of my favorites. I think we knocked that one out of the park from the beginning. I love the gin. All of them I really like.
Dan, I don't think you get lightning round.
Sorry. Sorry.
All right. One more question. Actually, a couple more questions here. So you guys had a long day. Obviously, you guys are always busy and running around and staying on your feet. So how do you like to unwind after a long, busy day? And don't cheat and say you have a SoCIAL Lite.
Well, recently for me, I got a bike this summer finally. So I like going for a bike ride at the end of the day.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I start my day with coffee and a run, so I end my day hanging out with my family. So
Nice. All right. So lastly, this is going to go back to one of the flavors here. So Neetu mentioned the pineapple mango is doing really well. We wanted to get your take on this. This is a very controversial question on the podcast, and we want to know if that pineapple flavor translates to food. So do you guys like pineapple on your pizza?
Absolutely. I don't eat meat, so
Okay.
yeah. I'm a pescatarian, so pineapple is amazing on pizza.
Love it.
I'm a mostly no, but if my sister-in-law orders it, I'll eat it.
Okay. Okay.
She
So I guess the two Laurier grads are kind of interesting.
I know. Yeah. I like how that worked out.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, well, that kind of concludes our podcast here. So thank you so much, Dan and Neetu, for being a part of this. We got a ton of great content here for all of our listeners. And again, kudos to you guys for building such an amazing company, and keep up the great work, because you definitely got two supporters here in terms of your product line and continuous support.
Amazing. Guys. No, thank you guys for your time and amazing podcasts. I mean, you guys are soaring through the ranks, so that's amazing. We want to see you guys number one soon.
Yeah, let's aim for that. Similar to you guys, we're hustling every day trying to do stuff. So looking forward to it, and we'll definitely keep you guys up to date on what we're up to.
Amazing, guys.
Thanks, guys, for having us.
All right.
All right, guys. Have a great day.
You too. Take care, guys.